ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So first of all, thank you to everyone who came and showed up. So many of you. I really appreciate that you guys came out because, you know, there's midterms, there's finals, there's all the school stuff, there's so many other things people would rather do. But it means at least you want to learn something, or even if you already know, you have some interest or some sort of connection with Vaisakhi or with history or some desire to learn or grow, or maybe all your friends are here, I don't know. But whatever the reason is, that it's good that at least you guys came, right? And so I appreciate that, and the fact that you're listening to me and giving me a chance to speak. That's like a respect and honor that you're giving me. I'm not some, you know, big professor or Gathalachik or, you know, famous person that everyone comes to listen to. So I appreciate that you guys are giving me your attention and your time. So today we're going to talk about Vaisakhi. As everyone knows, there's nothing displayed behind me. But that's okay, that's not important. But that means you guys need to all focus. Listen. Yeah, if you guys could come closer, that would be good.
Into the middle and then up.
Thank you for suggesting that. There's only a few empty seats left here at the front, so it'll be a better environment, right? I would have a microphone.
Small groups would just be closer.
More intimate. Okay, so just a basic outline. What are we talking about? I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Vaisakhi or what happened, the main, or most important, or most common thing. So we're going to try to discuss some of the parts of Vaisakhi that are not talked about as much and go a little bit more in depth. Okay, so Vaisakhi in the context of Sikh history. Besides the creation of Khalsa, right, Vaisakhi of 1699, what other days or what other times was Vaisakhi important? Or how else is it significant to us throughout history? And then what does Guru Granth Sahib Ji say? Guru Granth Sahib Ji is our Guru, right? So that's our ultimate source for everything. What does Guru Granth Sahib Ji tell us about Vaisakh, about this season, about this time, and the specific day, what does this bring about? What does this mean for the world? So we're going to talk about all of that, and then we'll get to the actual Amrit Sanchar and a little bit about Khalsa. So we're going to start, like I said, from Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Guru Granth Sahib Ji talks about Vaisakhi, talks about the month of Vaisakh, this season, this time, in multiple places. And if you're familiar with Gurbani, you've seen it. You've seen the word come up, Vaisakh or Vaisakhi, they both come up. And one of the places that talks about Vaisakhi, or with the time, the month of Vaisakh, is in Barama. Are you guys familiar with the Baani called Barama? So Bara is what? 12, right? Maha is like months. So Barama is this Baani that talks about the 12 months. Right, the 12 months of the year. Now, Punjabi months are a little bit different. There's some overlap. Sometimes they're like from the middle of one month to the middle of the other month. But basically, Guru Sahib writes this Bani, and they use each month as a way to remind us of Vaheguru. Right? So in this month, in this season, when it's hot, you should remember Vaheguru. When it's cold, when it's beautiful, when it's dry, always brings us back to Vaheguru. And there's two Banamas in Guru Granth Sahib. There's Banama Tukhari, which is written by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and then there's Banama Amaj, written by Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj. So, and both of them use that same concept where they talk about each month, and as they go through each month, they start talking about how you can use that month to connect back with Vaheguru. So the Shabad from Banama that we're talking about for Vaisakh is by Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and that Shabad is Vaisakh Pada Sakha Ves Kare Tan dekhe har dwar avo daya kare. How many people have heard this shabd before? Not that many, huh? Because it's not that common, right? It's not that common. But if you read Gurbani, you will find shabds like these. So Vaisakh Pala, what is Pala? Good, right? Guru Sahib, Vaisakh is the month. Guru says Vaisakh is great. Vaisakh is a good month, a good time, a good season. Why? Sakha ves kare. The leaves, the branches, the flowers, the trees are growing, right? They're growing, they're sprouting new leaves. That's the main line. Now you look at that and that sounds like, okay, Guruji is talking about the creation, right? So Guruji says that in spring, the plants are growing. You can look at it as just a simple statement, or you can go much deeper. And today we're going to try to go much deeper and say there's multifacets of how that can be interpreted. So we're going to get back to that. That's going to be our main theme, is that Shabad, right? And that Shabad is talking about what? It's talking about growth. It's talking about new life, right? And that's what Vaisakhi is about. Vaisakhi is about growth and new life, whether you talk about in terms of Sikhi, in terms of Khalsa, or you talk about in nature, right? There's new life. So Vaisakhi, besides the Amrit Sanchar, has a lot of historical significance throughout our history. When Guru Nanak Dev Ji came into this world, we're probably familiar with the kind of state that, the way that India was in at the time, right? Where the caste system was so strong, there was religious persecution, right? The Mughals were ruling over India. So all of that was going on, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji comes in with this revolutionary new message, right? So that was Vaisakhi. That was during Vaisakh when Guru Nanak Dev Ji said, "Na koi Hindu, na koi Musliman." When he says this, and everyone's like, "Whoa, what?" Like they get offended, or like, "Wait, you're saying we don't exist, or we don't count?" What Guru Sahib was actually saying is that in Vaheguru's eyes, there's no difference between anyone because inside everyone is the same. Right? You probably see that like picture of different people, and then inside there's a skeleton, and all the skeletons look the same. Right? That's the same concept. And so Guru Nanak Dev Ji comes during Vaisakhi, and he's trying to break people away from all these parampuleke, these doubts, these rituals. Right? What kind of things are people doing at the time? Guru Nanak Dev Ji was freeing us from those. That was during Vaisakhi. So the Sakhi where Guru Nanak Dev Ji goes to Haridwar and they're throwing water to their ancestors. How many people have heard of that? If you haven't, I can go over it real quick. I'll go over it really quickly. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to the river, right? Sacred river, and the Brahmins there are taking the water and they're like splashing it in a certain direction, right? You can say towards the east, I think it was. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji comes, right? And he's standing there. Now Guru Sahib had this unique way of teaching a lesson or imparting something. Instead of just telling you like, why are you doing this, do that, right? He would show them. So he comes, he stands behind them, and he takes the water and starts splashing in the opposite direction, right? And they're like, hundreds of people do this like every year. They're like, what is this guy doing? So they start laughing at him, right? And they say, like, you're being silly. What are you doing? You're in the wrong direction, right? It's this way. And Guru Sahib says, why is it that way? Right? Why are you splashing water over there? And they ask him, well, why are you splashing in the opposite direction? Everyone splashes it this way. This is for our ancestors. And he says, well, I have my farms, mere khed hai, and they're really far away, and they're really dry right now. So what I'm doing is I'm splashing the water so that water goes all the way to my kid and waters my plants. So they start laughing at him like, the water is not going to go all the way to your farms, right? To your land. It's going to fall right here in the river. And Guru Sahib says, well, what are you doing it for? And they say, well, our ancestors who have already passed in the next world, in the next life, we're sending them water. Right? We're sending them water. And Guruji says, okay, so you're telling me that my water can't go like 1,000 miles to my fields, but they can go hundreds of thousands of miles like across the galaxy into heaven or space or the other planet or whatever your ancestors are. Right? So when he puts it like that, all of a sudden we're like, whoa, wait, this actually makes no sense, what we're doing. Right? And so that was Guru Sahib's way of kind of freeing people from these old traditions that were more rituals and didn't actually make any sense. So that Sakhi also happened during the same time. So when we're remembering this so many years later, the significance of this is building, because this is when Guru Nanak Dev Ji started, right? He started spreading this message that, caste system, idol worship, all these things that people were doing at the time is not the way to get to Vaheguru, not the way to get to God. And then Guru Gobind Singh Ji, in 1699, Vaisakhi said the same thing when he gave us the Rat Maryada. Then he says, don't go pray to tombstones and graves, right? Don't follow these pandits and jotshis and false gurus, devtaris. He's freeing us from that same mental slavery that people have become enslaved over the years. So they're kind of doing the same thing at the same exact time, only so many years later. And that was a continuation of that. Then on the same day in Vaisakhi, the same time, the same month, Vaisakh, right, that we're in right now, was when Guru Amar Das Ji was born. So Guru Amar Das Ji Maharaj was also born during this time. Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj was also born during the month of Vaisakh. So now we're not just celebrating Khalsa, we're celebrating the birth of our Gurus, right? We're celebrating the birth of Guru Arjan Dev Ji, the birth of Guru Amar Das Ji. Guru Nanak Dev Ji start on this walk, on this path. Then on top of that, if you've heard, how many of you have heard of Dukh Panchani Beri at Harmandir Sahib? So there's a tree there, right? That tree is still there. And that was before the Darbar Sahib was made. There was the pool, that was where the Sarovar was, where the Sarovar now is. And basically, this woman went there, I'm going to keep the story short, but when she went there, her husband was a leper, and so he was completely diseased. And she left him there, and they had went to Guru Sahib, right? Guru Sahib was talking to them, and she left him there. He went into the pool, because he saw that this black bird, like a pigeon or a crow, right? A crow went in, and it came out like a dove, right? And so he was like, whoa, Like there's something special about this place. What just happened? So let me try. So he goes in and he gets cured, right? So he gets cured. He left one finger out of the water. So when he came out, his whole body was like fixed, right? It was like renewed, just like we're talking about right now, except that one finger. So when she came back, she was like, "Who are you? What'd you do with my husband? Where'd he go? You're like, he looks totally different, right? His skin, his body changed, and then he showed that finger to prove that it was really him. And they found that that place was miraculous, and that's where they made the silver. That's where Harmandir Sahib was eventually made. So that Sakhi, that event also happened during Vaisakh. So now we're celebrating that as well. Then
Quick question. Is Vaisakh the new year?
Vaisakh,
Like for Sikhs, is that like when New Year starts?
the New Year's in Chet.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's really close to this time,
Okay.
right? But we can say it's new for like Khalsa New Year, right? Like Khalsa, Khalsa Sajna Divas is how we'll say it. And then a few other things like when Guru Harkrishan Sahib Ji was declaring who the next Guru was going to be, Baba Bakali, Guru Tegh Bahadur, that happened during Vaisakh, right? So this is all from reading books, from listening to Katha, from reading Gurbani. You realize that this day and this time is actually really, really important in our history. When Bhai Nand Lal Ji, how many people have heard of Bhai Nand Lal? Right? He wrote a lot of shabdas, he wrote a lot of verses that we still sing today. And they're not in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, they're a separate composition, but he talks about our history in there. And he went and met Guru Gobind Singh Ji, got darshan of Guru Gobind Singh Ji also on Vaisakhi. So not the Khalsa Vaisakhi, but before that had happened, right? Then there were a lot of Sarbat Khalsas. We heard about Sarbat Khalsa where all the Sikhs get together, right? That typically happened on Vaisakhi or Diwali over the years. Then Jallianwala Bagh, when in India, right? So many people died, so many people sacrificed for independence. A lot of Sikhs, right? A lot of Sikhs were part of that. That also happened on Vaisakhi. Then even recently, so now we're going like over hundreds of years, right? Even recently as 1978, there were a lot of Sikhs who got shaheed on Vaisakhi in Amritsar when they went to protest because people were doing bid of Guru Sahib. Just like now, people are doing disrespect of Guru Sahib, and people went to protest, right? And some people even died. They got shot by the police. The same thing happened 20, 30 years ago, also on Vaisakhi. So now Vaisakhi is a lot bigger than just one event. There's multiple events. And so it's like a recurring, it's this time. So what's so special about this time? And that's what we're going to talk about with this Shabad. So the Shabad was Vaisakh Pala, Sakha Veskare. The Shabad is from Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And it says, this month of Vaisakh is so great, is so wonderful. Why? Because the plants, the branches are growing new leaves. So they're growing new leaves. What does that mean? That means everything is suddenly turning green. If you heard of Basant, Basant is a season, Basant is a rag. So this springtime that happens right before Vaisakh, everything is growing, right? Everything's getting new life, is turning green, and everything looks beautiful. So Guruji says, when you see everything around you looking so beautiful, use that as a reminder to remember Vaheguru. Right? Use that. When you see a beautiful flower, you're like, oh, that flower is really pretty. Do we think who created that flower? It wasn't the gardener, right, who watered it, or it wasn't anyone specifically who shaped or molded the flower. It came on its own. There's the one creator, right? So when you see anything in creation, Guruji says, use that to remember the creator behind it. What we do is we get so stuck in the creation itself, we forget that there's somebody else. That's what Gurbani says, Dat Pyari Visriya Datara. So the gift, we're in love with the gift and we forgot the giver. Right? If someone gave us a gift, we're like, all right, thanks, I love this present, forget you. That's kind of messed up. Right? But that's the concept. We're like, hey, remember the one who gave you all this, because even if you thank him forever, you can't. Because you can't even make a list of everything that we've been given. Right? We start from ourselves, from our body, our parents, our family, and we go all the way to everything in the world around us. It's amazing. So Guruji says, use this time to help you remember Vaheguru. And when someone is in love with Vaheguru, then that person, that soul is calling Vaheguru. Aao mirte daya karo. Come see me, bless me, right? Come into my house, my home, into my mind, dwell in my heart. Then they're doing this ardas, that I see all this, everything being beautiful, right? And it's reminding me of you. When, Vaheguru, are you going to come into my mind? Because we can't just do it on our own, right? We can't be like, all right, now I remember Vaheguru and I'm good. And then the second later you'll forget, right? So Guruji says, you do it in ardas, you ask Vaheguru, you yourself have to come and dwell inside my heart. So when these new leaves are growing from these branches, these new flowers are growing, what does this mean? This means the old stuff, the old plants which died, right, which dried up, are now getting new life. Right? So that means these old rituals, the old beliefs that the people had at the time are being destroyed, and instead Guru Sahib is replacing them with new life, with new ideals, new thoughts, new philosophies. So when a Sikh takes Amrit and you become part of the Khalsa, Guruji tells you, all your past is now, your past karams, they don't count, they're cleared, right? They're destroyed. Your last name, your family, your Jat Pat, your hometown, your parents, everything is now Vaheguru, everything is Guru Sahib, everything is Khalsa, right? This is your new family, you're starting a new life. So you're basically just killing your old life and creating and being born again, right? Some people get a new name, we get a new last name. Now that just became the last name that we all have, right? Even if we don't have Amrit. So that's a new life that we're getting, and that's what Gurbani says. It says, kill your mind, right? And then you get a new life in the house of the Guru. Shabad mare man mare apna. So use the Gurbani to kill your mind. What does that mean, kill your mind? Kill your ego, right? So kill your ego, and now you're accepted in the court of Vaheguru. So when this thing grows, this greenery comes, this beauty comes, that also represents the love that is welling up for Vaheguru, right? The love is growing, and in this Shabad you can see that they say the soul bride, right? Like the soul is like I'm the wife and Vaheguru is the husband, right? So you're in love with Vaheguru and you're asking Vaheguru to come. So it's like Kar aao pyare duttar tare tud bin ad na molo. So come into my house, right? Come inside my heart, Vaheguruji. Without you, I'm not worth anything. I'm not even worth a penny or even half a shell. Right? I'm worth nothing. So that's the avdas that they're doing. And a Sikh without a guru is not worth anything. Because if you say a student, you're a student of someone or something. Right? You're not just a student of nothing. So that without a teacher, you can't be a student. Right? I'm a student of who? What school do you go to, or what class are you in? If you don't go to school, you're not in a class, you don't have a teacher, it's hard to say you're a student of that. Right? So that Sikh is nothing without the guru. And that's what this Shabad is saying. Why do without you I'm nothing, so please bless me so that I may become part of you. So what Guru Sahib did then on Vaisakhi is he gave us his own form. Right? He gave us his own roop, Khalsa roop. Guruji says, I want you to look like me. Right? I wear this varna, I want you to wear this varna. I wear these kakars, I want you to wear these kakars. So the Shabad says, Sakha Veskare, the branches are changing. They're having a new form. And we're also changing and we're developing a new form. So this Shabad has so many levels, reflects what's happening on Vaisakhi. You can say on a political, on a worldly level, right? Or you can say on just a spiritual level. That this gives us new life, this gives us like a freshness, a new beginning. And this, in Vaisakhi, the seed was planted, this is a season of spring, right? This is a season of growth. So in Punjab, Vaisakhi is also celebrated because most of Punjab is farmers and farmland. So they celebrate their fasal bijigi and their crops are growing, right? That was a celebration of Vaisakhi. So the same way, the seed that Guru Nanak Dev Ji planted, right, got watered and grew and matured over more than 200 years, and then finally sprouted and grew into what is the Khalsa by Guru Gobind Singh Ji's time. That's what we can understand from this, right? The Guru Sahib planted the seed. It wasn't like Guru Nanak Dev Ji made a different plant and Guru Gobind Singh Ji came later and planted a different plant. It's the same plant, all the gurus over time, because you can't just expecting the thing to grow like instantly or overnight and mature into a beautiful tree or a beautiful plant, right? It takes time. So that same time when we have to give sun, we have to give water, all these things are necessary for that plant to grow. In the same way that seed was planted, and over more than 200 years, this Khalsa was developed, right? This Khalsa was developed finally in 1699. And that same seed is inside all of us. Right? We're here, we have some interest or some connection to Vaisakhi or Sikhi, right? So that seed is there. Guruji says, Naam Amrit. Amrit is inside everybody. If you read Gurbani, it says, Amrit is inside you. Even if you haven't taken Amrit, it's inside you. So then the question is, then why do you need to take it, right? So to take it is Onu Pargat Karan Dile, right? To bring it out, Now the seed is in the ground. If you don't water, you don't give it sun, the seed is just going to stay in the ground forever, and no one's going to know that there was even a seed there, right? If you don't give it seva, sangat, simran, right? If you don't pour water on it, you don't give it sunlight, you don't give it air or carbon dioxide, right? It's not going to grow, right? It's not going to become anything, and that seed is just going to stay in there. So that's why you need outside. You need the Kirpa Panch Pyare or Guru Sahib to bless you, and so they give you Amrit from outside, and that brings the Amrit out from inside, and that seed grows. And then another thing with Khalsa, with the seed, right, with this fruit that we're growing into, this beautiful tree, is that when you have a beautiful fruit, or you have something that's really sweet or really tasty, it needs to have like a peel or something to protect it, like a shell, right? You look at like a walnut or something, it has like a really hard shell that you have to break open, right? or peanut or something. And then even some fruits have like really hard shells on them, but they all have peels. They're covered. They're protected by something. So this Sikhi that Guruji is giving us, right, that's growing through all these years, this beautiful plant that's growing into a fruit during the time of the Khalsa, if you don't give it something to protect it, then it'll just get destroyed, right? What happens? Weeds come up, bugs come up, someone comes and pulls the flower out, right? Someone cuts it off. And we were the same, that Sikhira Bhutta, and then a Sikhira Bhutta, where we gave the blood of the Kuna Rashahids to grow the Sikhira Bhutta. So what happened if we didn't protect it, it would have been destroyed, right? It kept getting attacked. So then Guru Sahib had to give us that hard shell, and that's why we have this Baharli red, and that's why we're Shastrtari, right? That's why do we carry, they're like, oh, if you're peaceful, then why do you have a sword, right? You have to protect it, right? You have to protect it, because anything beautiful, you have a beautiful garden, it's so nice, you're going to put a fence around it so some animal doesn't come and trample all over it, or the bugs don't come and eat all the things, or someone doesn't just like cut it all down. So that same fence is our Baharli red, that same fence is our soldier side, right? And then we have a saint side. But that fence is useless if there's no garden inside. So if you just say like, I'm going to wear a kirpan and I'm going to wear kada, and I'm going to be like, yeah, right, I wear bada and I'm good to go, but there's no bani, that gurbani, that seed, that naam is not inside, then that fence is guarding nothing. It's an empty garden, right? It's barren soil. So there's not really much of a point of that. At the same time, if you're growing something, sooner or later you have to protect it. You can spend your whole life, some of us, a lot of people have a lot of pyar for Sikhi on the inside, and they say, I really believe in Guru Granth Sahib, I believe in Gurbani, I believe in Sikhi, but I'm not ready to keep my hair or something, or act on it, or tie a bug. That's great that they have that, right? And that's that fruit that's growing. But sooner or later it has to be protected, otherwise it won't be able to stand up against all the external forces, right? We have Kam, Krodh, Lom, Onkar, those are attacking us inside. And then we have all the social pressures of society pressuring us from outside. So that's why this fruit needs to be protected. And then what did Guruji do? So Guruji gave us this official form, right? Guruji formalized this process in 1699. So is everyone familiar with, in 1699 there was the main Amrit Sanchar, and Guru Sahib gave Amrit. Do we need to go over that? I think everyone more or less knows. If you don't, feel free to raise your hand and I can discuss it in a little bit more detail.
We should still
Just
know
go over
a little
it.
bit about it.
Okay, so in brief, I'll go over it anyways, is when Guru Gobind Singh Ji came out in 1699, right, and called, on Vaisakhi, called a huge gathering of Sikhs. So they say like 80,000 is a common figure. A huge gathering of Sikhs, right? Think of like Yuva City, right? But everyone's standing in one place, right, from the Nagar Kirtan. They're all in one huge, and they didn't have mics or anything back then either. So Guru Sahib comes out, right, he pulls out his talwar, and he says, I need one head. I need someone to give up their head. And everyone's like, okay. And some people, they're like, people said that, right? Now that's rude, or we say, we don't want to say disrespect Guru Sahib, but people were like, what happened? What's wrong with that? Right? Why is he, he's threatening us, he wants to kill us. And they had already fought battles, right? It's not like they hadn't fought any battles until then. They had already fought battles. They're like, what happened? And he's like, I need a head. Right? And he's holding his kirpan up. So some people were got scared and they left. Right? They just wussed out and they ran away. Right? And other people were just like, well, I'm not going up. Right? I don't want to get my head chopped off. And sooner or later, one person came up, right? And that was by Dayaram. So first, one person came up. Guru Sahib took them in the tent. You heard it whoosh. Right? Guru Sahib came out. There was blood on the sword. Right? Then he asked again and again, second, third, fourth, fifth time. Guruji asked for a head, and people were like, more and more, he's going crazy, what's happening? Some people even went to Mata Vijayji and said, what's happening to your son? He's going crazy, he's going to kill us all, right? He wants to chop off our heads. What's happening here? And one by one, 5 people came up, right? 5 people came up. Everyone was really scared because they heard the sword and they saw the blood, right? After that, Guruji brought them all out, and all of them were still alive, or they had been reborn, right? They had new clothes, they had new bana, they had new dastaran, they all had Siddhi Sahib. So they were wearing the Khalsa bana that you guys have probably seen, right? The Khalsa dress. I had a picture, but can't show it. So the Khalsa, that was the first Amrit Sanchar, first time Guru Sahib gave Khande Bhatte Amrit. And that was, they have a Sarvlo Bhatta and they have a Khanda, right? And Guru Sahib read Panj Baniya, Yadu Sahib, Jap Sahib, Topar Sahib, Soye, Chope Sahib, and Nan Sahib, right? And mixed that water, right? And the Bani, the power of that Gurbani went into the water. What makes the Sarovar at Darbar Sahib so special right? There's 24/7 kirtan going on there. All that kirtan affects the water. You guys have probably seen like these experiments and reports and documentaries where the guy like puts sounds on water and stuff like that. Are you guys familiar with that? So this is not a Sikh thing. This is someone else. He like plays different music. He writes different things on water, and it apparently changes the molecular makeup of it. And he uses a microscope to look at it. And basically, his point was that different type of energies, different types of sounds affect the actual to the chemical molecular level. It gets changed. It's still water, but like when he was playing like really loud, fast, crazy music, it was something else. And saying peaceful, slow music, it was something else. Like you look at it under a microscope, and it looks like flowers or stars, as opposed to like a whole mix-up. Right? But so that's just like that's something recent, right? But the philosophy is that Gurbani is the Guru, and Gurbani has all the power. So something that is in hearing Gurbani 24/7 is naturally going to take asad of that. So that Amrit, what makes it so special is the Bani is in there, right? And Guru Sahib made it themselves. So they look into it and they make that Amrit. And then the patase were put in there, so that made it sweet. And that Amrit was given to the Panch Pyare. And they were called the Panch Pyare. Pyare, like beloved, right? So Guruji says, you passed this test, you came up and you were willing to give your head to me, so you're a beloved, right? You're a pyara, like, I love you. That's how much love that you showed me. And they're remembered to this day, and they'll be remembered throughout history, right? By Daya Singh Ji, by Taran Singh Ji, by Himmat Singh Ji, by Mokam Singh, and by Sahib Singh, right? So those are the Panch Pyare. Now, these Panch Pyare came from different castes. They came from different areas, different backgrounds, different last names. And Guruji brought them all together, right? He said, now you're all brothers, you're part of the same family, you're all one. And then the most amazing thing that Guruji did after that was Guru Gobind Singh Ji kneeled down in front of them, in front of the Panch Pyare, and Guruji says, now can you bless me with Amrit? Give me the Amrit Dida. So now the leader, the king, right, the king of kings of this whole congregation with thousands of followers is on his knees begging. So that's the humility Guru Gobind Singh Ji is showing us. Begging for Amrit Dida. And the Panch Pyare said, we gave our heads, right? We gave our heads for this talk. This is not just something we asked for when we got it, right? We gave our heads for this, and you blessed us with this. So what are you going to give? Right? This Amrit is not, you can't just go get it. You have to be willing to give up something for it. And what was that? Guru Gobind Singh Ji said, I'm willing to give up my whole family. Right? Sarvants, I'm willing to give up everything. And you guys are probably aware Guru Gobind Singh Ji sacrificed all his sons, right? His mother, his father, his whole family, everything, his whole kingdom for the Khalsa. Guru Gobind Singh Ji sacrificed everything for the Khalsa. So that's what Guru Gobind Singh Ji said, I'm willing to give. And in return, Guru Gobind Singh Ji got that dat of Amrit from the Panch Pyare. And his name before that was Gobind Rai. Then his name became Gobind Singh. So once you take Amrit, you get that last name, Singh or Kaur. Right? So that was the Vaisakhi of 1699. The Guru Sahib created the Khalsa. So now he says, you're not just five guys, who I just gave Amrit to. You together are the Guru. You're equivalent to the Guru. Guru Gobind Singh Ji basically kneeled in front of them, right? He basically matha teked them and said, you're the Guru now. So Guruji is giving that power to us, right? To continue that's what the whole Panth is. All the Khalsa together has the power of the Guru, right? In the presence of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. So that's the Amrit Sanchar still happens. Any 5 Gursikhs can get together, right? Amritari Gursikhs, and they can create Amrit again using the same Panjabani. So that same process is being used, right, for hundreds of years. It's not like today's Amrit is being created in a different way. It's the same Baniya, it's the same process, right? That water turns into Amrit with the power of the Bani and with the power of 5, right? Guruji says, Main vasda in the Sangat, it's me, right? You can treat all the Panch Pyare as the Guru. And whatever they say, you have to accept as my hukam, as a command. Right? So once he gave them that power, he gave that power to us. And that was the Khalsa Panth Guruji created. When we talk about the Panch Pyare, you guys know the names, right? We just went over them. The first one was by Daya Singh Ji, and the second one was by Taran Singh. So does anyone know what Daya means?
Compassion?
Compassion, right? So Daya is compassion, love, right? And what is Taran?
Righteousness.
Righteousness, religion, okay? So first by Daya Singh Ji came up, right? Compassion was the first thing that came, and the second thing that came was religion, or righteousness. So that's a lesson that we're getting. Now we can say, oh, it's a coincidence who came up first, who came up second. But out of everything that happens in history, there's a ramaj, there's something hidden behind it, right? There's another secret meaning, there's something deeper you can interpret. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji said in Japji Sahib, right? So this was like 200 years before that. Said, Tol Taram Daya Kaput. What does that mean? Does anyone know? What is okay? What is put? Not put. Put like puttar. Okay, put. Son, right?
Son.
Daya ka put. Son of compassion. So what is the son of compassion? Dharam. Righteousness is the son of compassion. So what does that mean? That means compassion is the father. Compassion comes first, righteousness comes second. That's what Guru Nanak Dev Ji said in Japji Sahib. Then 200, almost 50 years later, that's literally what happened. The person with the name of compassion came up first, and the person with the name of religion or righteousness came up second. So if we have that religion or we have that feeling of righteousness, like I'm doing the right thing and I know what to do and what not to do, right, and this person's wrong, but there's no compassion behind it, then you're already off to a bad start. Right? The most important thing is missing. So all religion, because Guruji, what's the other shabad that we all say so much is Joto Prem Khilam Tarchao, right? If you want to play the game of love. Right? We say Sach Kho Sun Leo Sabe, Jin Prem Kiyo Tin Hi Payo. That person who has love meets Vaheguru, right? Gets to God. So that's why Guruji is saying the most important thing, the first thing, and Guruji showed us that practically is love, is compassion. So what comes out of compassion, the religion, the righteousness that's born out of that, that is the true righteousness. That is true religion. Then we got Mokam by Daya Singh, Dharam Singh, by Himmat Singh. Right? So what is Himmat? Strength, courage, bravery, right? Himmat, like Himmat Rakh, right? Be strong, you can get through this. Like when you're having finals, like Himmat Rakh, right? You guys can get through this. So then you have compassion, then your righteousness, right? Then you're righteous, and then you need to have himmat. Because what's going to happen? You're being attacked by the Mughals, right? You're being attacked by the Pahari Rajas. You're outnumbered, right? Everyone around you, you're a minority, even now. There's no way you can be a Khalsa even today if you don't have himmat. You don't have courage, right? If someone looks at you and you're not brave enough to stand up to that, then you won't be able to get through it. So that's himmat, and then mokam. Mokam is also very similar, it means staying steadfast and being strong, right? Being able to get through anything. So continuing. And Guruji says if you have that compassion and you're righteous, right? If you have that courage, you have that himmat, and you stay strong, you have your resolve, then what happens? I'll make you sahib. Sahib ko hona. Sahib is the master. So Guruji says at the end of this, you become the master, right? So now out of this over 200 years, the Sikhs were prepared, then they were tested. And at the end, Guru Sahib says, okay, now I'm going to make you the master. You're the Khalsa, you're the Guru, right? And I'm going to be your Sikh. He says, O Sahib, main uska chehra. That person, who's following this code of conduct, right? This maryada, this lifestyle that I've given. Guruji says, O Sahib, right? Again, same reference to Panch Pyare, right? He is the master. Main uska chehra. I'm like a chilla, I'm a follower of that person. And Guruji literally went down. And there were times when the Panch Pyare actually gave hukam to Guru Gobind Singh, right? They said, Guru Sahib, no, you can't do this, you have to leave, you have to do this. And Guruji accepted it as hukam of the Guru because he gave them that power, that Guruship. So what happened? Guruji made us the master. Guruji made us the Khalsa. That is the eventual result of Vaisakhi at the end of 1699, right? Now, it's up to us if we live up to that, if we continue that, or the Khalsa today continues those ideals. What are those ideals? They said Raj Karega Khalsa, right? Khalsa can rule, Khalsa will rule. Why? Because Khalsa's ideals and values are based on compassion, right? You don't want the person in charge to be based on hate or greed. That person who is in charge is to be based on compassion so that they assure a good rule for everybody, right? Akira and Nakwa, there won't be an enemy. But the Khalsa has to stay Niyara, has to follow its path, right? And once again, that seed that was planted by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, what does Khalsa mean?
Pure.
Right, we say pure. So pure is what? Pure means like clean, right? Without any imperfection. Bhai Gurdas Ji says, Nanak Nirmal Panth Chalaya. Guru Nanak Dev Ji started a new pure path. So this is talking about Guru Nanak Dev Ji, right? A new pure path, a new panth that is pure, that is Nirmal. And Nirmal is the same thing as Khalas, which is pure. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji Khalsa Panth, once again as a reference, there's a big link there that Guru Gobind Singh Ji kind of finalized, put the finishing touches on that path, right? That Khalsa Panth. But Khalsa also means, right, in Farsi, I think one is Arabic and one is the Persian interpretation. Khalsa also means that land or that thing that is directly under the king, under the ruler. That's the actual meaning that Khalsa is derived from for us, not just pure, right? What does that mean? It's directly under the king. That means there's no one in between them. So there's the king has like the land divided in the kingdom, right? Then there's one portion that the king keeps for himself that's not taxed, right? That the king owns directly. That is Khalas, that's Khalsa. So when the Sikhs, like Guru Amar Das Ji, Guru Ram Das Ji, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, during that time they had masands. You know what masands are? So Guruji appointed other people as people who are in between, that are like charged of certain areas. And they say, "Tusi utte ja ke prachar karo." Your duty is to collect all of this one from this area to bring it all over here, and your duty is to tell my message to those people, right? So there are all these masands. Then slowly, what happened is those people started getting corrupt. And they said, "Oh, we got all of this one. Instead of giving it to Guruji, let's take some of it for ourselves." Right? So we get greedy, when we see power, right? They're like, "Oh, these people respect me." They basically treat me as the guru for them because I'm like, next level, right? Between them and the guru. So they were in between. Slowly, they got corrupt. They started taking the money. They started abusing their power. And then Guruji said, "Okay, this is not okay." Right? So the sons, this is not okay that you guys are taking the sandats, the savan, which is used for the sandats for your personal gain. So Guruji ended the masand system. Now the masand was someone in between the sangat and the guru. So Guruji says, now you're going to be Khalsa, you're going to be reporting directly to me. So there's no one more in between. There's no more masands, there's no other in between person. Guruji says, your link is with me. So that's the Khalsa. The Khalsa is the one who's right under, who's royal basically. It's like royal land. The one right under the Guru, right? Without anyone else to. So we have access to Guru Granth Sahib Ji directly. We don't have to go to Upai Sahib or ask someone else to do the Path for us, to do the Khand Path for us, or do the Ardas for us. Anyone can go and read the Gurbani themselves, right? And it's not just like you have to be Amritari or something. Right? Any human being can read Gurbani. Gurbani is for the whole world. So Guruji gave us direct access, right? You don't need anyone else. And that's why they didn't use like Sanskrit at the time, like the scripts people were using. They were like, only holy writings can only be in this language so that the poor people can't read them. They tried to make it more understandable into a common language that everyone could understand. And Guruji gave us the direct access to Guru Granth Sahib Ji. But in return for what? In return for the Sikhs giving themselves up, right? They literally gave their heads, right? They literally gave their heads to Guru Sahib. For us, we don't have to literally give our heads anymore, most of the time, right? That case might arise, I don't know. But we have to at least give our mindset, our ego up to Guru Sahib. If we want to join this, if we want to join the Khalsa. Now there's no like rule that I have to force everyone, or everyone says you have to go join the Khalsa, right? But if you're Sikh, right? If you call yourself a Sikh or you identify with Sikh, then like I said, a student is nothing without their teacher, right? So if someone does identify as a Sikh, then they're on the path towards Sikhi. Then they have to basically follow their teacher's teachings, right? And if Guru Sahib themselves took Amrit, then we're not above that, right? If we want to be a Sikh, we're not above what Guru Sahib did. We actually need to follow Guru Sahib's path. Sometimes we say, my mind is pure, so I don't need to do this other thing, right? And that's really good, your mind is pure, right? That's a lot, that's already a bigger accomplishment than most people, if that's true, right? But Guru Gobind Singh Ji's mind was pure, of course, right? Like you probably can't get a pure heart, pure mind than that, but they still took Amrit, and they still followed the Rat, and all the other Guru Sikhs after that followed that Rat. So that's necessary for a Sikh, right? That's necessary for a Sikh to give up that ego, give up that mindset. And that's what's hard, right? It's hard to say, go ahead and cut my head off, because you're like, wait, I'm going to die. He didn't say, hey, come here and I'm going to give you life again. He didn't make that promise first. He didn't promise anything, right? They were just willing to do it because that's it. Yeah. So even though Sikhi is very practical and has a reason for everything, even if we don't see the reason, that doesn't mean that we're not supposed to do it if we're truly Sikh and we love our Guru, right? Because love isn't always rational, right? There's no, you don't have to get something, it's unconditional, right? That's the love that Sikh has for their Guru. So that's the same class, that's the final level. So we started Guru Nanak Dev Ji planted the seed. That was like first grade, right? So we start, when we first go, we have a little backpack and we did like 2 papers and some toys. And they don't really like teach us much, right? In kindergarten or first grade, it was mostly like playtime and babysitting, right? And then the next year we got some more papers and then we learned to read and then we read little books. Then our bag gets heavier and heavier. We get more papers, more books. The lessons get harder. The math gets harder, right? Equations get longer, right? The homework gets more difficult and the material gets denser. So what happens? The teacher changes, the classroom changes, right? So from Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to Guru Angad Dev Ji, Guru Amar Das Ji, Guru Ram Das Ji, right? We went from Kartarpur Sahib, we went to Khadur Sahib, we went to Goindwal. We moved areas. We moved teachers, even though they're all the same jot. and the lesson got more difficult. What happened first, it was just Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Bani that you had to learn, to memorize, to understand. Then Guru Angad Dev Ji wrote Bani, then Guru Amar Das Ji wrote Bani, then Guru Ram Das Ji wrote Bani. So that curriculum got more intense and deeper. And the Sikhs continued all the way to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, right? When he added Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's Bani in there as well. And then Guru Sahib said, okay, now's the final form. You've taken all the classes. Now I'm going to test you, right? So the test is, are you willing to give up your head? So the longer the padai that you do, right, the education that you're taking, and the bigger the degree that you're trying to get a master's, you're trying to get a PhD, the harder the test is going to be, right? And the more work is going to be required to get there. So that's why that final stage was giving up the head, right? That's like the supreme test. What more can you ask from there, right? And the Sikhs passed it, and Guruji in return gave them the highest degree, right? You're a PhD, okay, now you're the teacher, right? You guys can get together and teach the class. That's what he said, right? Panch pyare dal ke tusi amrit di daat baksh sakde ho. Bakiyan nu baki Khalsa pan. And that happens to this day. So a couple of other things that I wanted to discuss, to mention before we get into the open discussion part. So that we briefly went over Vaisakhi in Sikh history, right? And then finally from Guru Nanak Dev Ji to Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj and Amrit, right? And there's some other concerns that we have, some questions. Maybe when we have questions we can talk about these things, but whatever I thought of before I'll just address now. Like a common question is, what about Guru Gobind Singh Ji? Was there Amrit? If there wasn't Amrit, then why can't we just do like what they did before then? Right? So the answer to that is Amrit was always there. Right? How many people know this? The Amrit was always there. From Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
Amrit or the inside Amrit?
Physical Amrit. Right? From Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. Right? So that was called Charan Amrit. And by Gurudas Ji, our primary source, first person source, right? Who actually saw Guru Sahib and who was there during Guru Sahib's lifetimes, wrote this. Charanamrit Sikha Pilaya. So Charanamrit is Charan is feet. They literally washed the feet of the Guru, and that's the water that they gave to the Sikh, and that was the initiation process. And the Sikhs actually drank that. Because that is the ultimate humility, right? You're my teacher, you're my Guru, and I'm drinking the water that touched your feet. And that's the Amrit. And if you were to become a Sikh of Guru Nanak, a Sikh of Guru Angad, you have to take that Charanamrit. So it's called Charanamrit. By Gurudas Ji talks about it. It's written in some other sources. Sikha Pilaya. They Sikhs drink that. Right? And they told them some basic guidelines and rules to live by, right? You're going to wake up at Amrit Vela, you're going to read these Vanis. There was a nitne, it was shorter nitne, right? Like Japji Sahib. You're going to read Japji Sahib and Ras Sahib every day, right? The rest of the Vanis hadn't been written yet. So there was some ret, there was some basic ideals, right? If we say Kirt Karo Vanchako Naam Japo, right? There were basic guidelines, and those got more detailed as it went, and they developed over time, right? We're only going to give you as much as you can handle. That was how Guru Sahib slowly developed this. Like I said, the plant doesn't go immediately overnight. You have to slowly water it. So that Charanamrit eventually became Khande Bate Amrit, right? So Guruji, from Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he changed it. He said, you're not going to be attached to the body or to the person anymore, right? Getting the water from the feet. Now the Gurbani, because the Gurbani is the Guru, Guru Granth Sahib Ji is getting the Gurgadi, right? Now the Gurbani is the one who's going to create that Amrit. And the Panch Pyare are going to be the body of the Guru, right? So he put the power in the people. So that Amrit was always there, but the rats changed over time. The Bani got more detailed, right? We can say it got harder, but it was based on the needs and how ready we were, right? And that still applies today. And then the other thing we already talked about was that Amrit Nam is already inside us, and how that Guru Sahib puts Amrit from outside to pull that out, right? And the common analogy given, which is also in Gurbani, is it's like a well. And in India, when they used to make a well, the well has water on the bottom already, right? It's connected to the water. But in order to pull that water out, you have to put water from the top. You can't just start pulling water out of the bottom. So they keep putting water from the top, and when the water they put on top finally reaches all the way down to the water at the bottom, then it connects, and then there's one stream of water coming out. So the same way the Amrit from the top connects to the Amrit inside, and Uparbit was in that. Antar Khuta Amrit Parya. That's the Shabad in Gurbani. Khuta, Khu, right? Tere andar Khu Parya hoya Amrit da. Shabde Kard Piyapan, how to use the Shabad to pull it out and drink it. Right? The Shabad. So what is that? That's Naam Simran, that's Vaheguru Gurmantra, that's Gurbani. And that's the ret we get. Right? So one last thing, and then I'll wrap it up from my end, and then we can open it up for questions. That is, the Amrit Sanchar that happens once, when you go and become Amritari and you take Amrit, that doesn't just happen one time, that happens every day. So a Sikh's job is to keep that Amrit going. And that's why, what makes Amrit is the Panjabaniya, right? Is the Panjabaniya and Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and you put that into the water and you put that inside you, right? So this is very interesting. When the first time I heard this or learned this, I was like, wow. What is our body, majority of our body composed of?
Water.
Water. There's a big percentage of water in our body, right? Right? A huge percentage. And so every day, Amritari Sikh's job, Amritari Sikh's job is to do nitane. So you sit there, this body of water, and you recite the Panjabaniya, right? So what is that doing? That's creating Amrit inside you. That's renewing that Amrit again and again and again, right? So that Amrit, you're recreating the Amrit, and you're part of Guru, you're part of Khalsa, right? You sit in Guru Sahib's duty and you do that nitane, the Amrit is being rejuvenated, refreshed, right? Now if someone doesn't do that, what happens slowly, right? It goes away. The other thing is that Amrit is not the final stage, right? Amrit Shakla, now you're Khalsa, now you're perfectly pure and pavitra. We've seen that, right? As we see Amritari people and we say, hey, this guy's Amritari, he's doing all these bad things, right? He's worse than me, right? Right? We see that. And so then we let that give us a bad impression of people who are Amritari or Amrit in general. Now, if someone gets admission to a school and they fail or they don't go to class, you don't say, like, that school sucks, right?
Yeah.
That person didn't put the effort in, right? So that's their own individual responsibility. That shouldn't be reflected on the whole school or the education system. In the same way, when you take Amrit, that's just your entrance, right? You just got into college, now you're in. So we did all these classes and we developed over time. Now we get into college finally, right? And we're committed. If we don't do the work, then we're going to fail, right? And so that doesn't mean the college is bad. That just means we didn't do the work. So there are a lot of people, and it's hard, right? Sometimes in college we feel like giving up, right? Like it's your last year, it's like, oh, one more semester, come on, I can do it. I just need that degree. So in the same way, you just have to keep going. And so we have to be able to forgive those around us and not let that affect. Like today, if I say something that I say wrong or that hurts or offends somebody, that's my mistake, right? That's not a mistake on Gurbani or the Sikh philosophy, right? The Guru is perfect. So in the same way, those people doing the wrong things, that is a reflection of their own personal effort, right? Or their bhag or their karam. The Guru Sahib put them on that path. That's not a reflection of Amrit. So let's not, try not to like let that reflect the actual concept, the actual philosophy of it itself. So I think that's a good point that we come to, for starting from the beginning to the ending, right? So the importance of Amrit. So now we see Vaisakhi is so significant, right? Amrit Santan, and we got our final form. But this time was really important in history throughout the ages. So when we're celebrating, we remember all this, and hopefully, that brings up a desire for us to connect and move forward. I just want to go back to the Shabad that we started with, which was Vaisakh Pala Sakha Veskare. This Vaisakh season is so beautiful that the trees and the leaves are growing, and seeing them, I'm inspired that I also want to grow and I want to connect with you, Vaiguruji. So, Dekhe Hardwar, Avo Daya Kare. Come meet me, Vaiguru. I'm waiting, right? I'm in love with Vaiguru. Come meet me, come bless me. Kar Ao Pyare Duttar Tare. Come to my house and carry me your cross. Save me.Tud bin Adna Molo. And without you, I'm not worth anything. I'm not worth anything. I'm nothing without my Guru, right? Kimat kaun kare tud bhavan dekh dikhave tolo. And then, if you do bless me, right, then I'm everything. Then who can even estimate my value? Who can say, oh, I'm this or that? The Khalsa is the image of Guru, right? Guruji says, Khalsa is my Guru, right? And Guruji gives that respect to Khalsa. So Guru Sahib is saying that same respect is to those who have connected with Vaiguru. Vaiguru, I see you and you inspire me to see you, and I connect with those, I connect with Guru Sahib who helped me connect with you, right? Who got me connected with Vaiguruji. And now, Guruji is saying the final stage in the Shabad is Dur na jana. What does that mean? I know that you're not far away, right? First I was saying, come to my house, and the doors are open, I'm waiting. And it says, Dur na jana antar manna. Now I know you're actually inside me, and you were inside me all along, right? But I just hadn't found you. Har kam mahal pachana. And now I realize your presence is inside this house. So it says, come into my house, that means in my mind, in my heart, right? Mere andar vas jo. Nanak Vaisakhi prap pave surat shabad man mana. So Guru Sahib is saying, in Vaisakhi, connect with Vaiguru, right? I have connected with Vaiguru in this time. I use this time as a time to connect with Vaiguru. And now my mind is connected to the Shabad, through that Shabad, my conscious, right, my understanding is connected with Vaheguru. And now I believe, now I really see, I really feel that God is actually there all along. So that is where this story of Vaisakhi ends. And that's how we can remember Vaisakhi even today and throughout the ages. As a time we see the beauty around us to remind us of Vaheguru, so that we can say, Vaheguru, come and bless us in our hearts as well. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Khalsa.